Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Transfer Portal CFB podcast presented by No Context College Football. We've got a loaded episode for you as we enter Conference Championship Week, but not only Conference Championship Week, the coaching carousel and the transfer portal are wide open. Things have been crazy. We've got a lot to talk about, but our guest this week is from Southern Charm Sports, Scout. Thank you so much, Scout, for joining us. How you doing?
Doing very well. Thank you for having me. Hoping to talk about football.
Absolutely. And Adam is with me as always. Adam, how we feeling?
I ain't gonna lie, I'm a little nervous.
Yeah.
I'm a little nervous, but I'm doing
It's
good.
been
I'm doing good. Yeah.
been a little while for your boys being in the conference championship, huh? So it's probably a feeling you're not used to. No offense, but
Hey, what do you mean by
they haven't been there for a while, right? It's
that?
been a little bit.
Yeah, it's been
But
like
well,
5 years. Yeah.
a little bit, but they definitely deserve to be there. So shout out to Texas and Sark. But to start things off, the coaching carousel has been taking over the college football world over the last week or so. It started with Jonathan Smith going to Michigan State, then later there was a lot of shebang about Texas A&M. It looked like they were going to hire Mark Stoops, and then things changed. Then they hired Mike Elko, bring him back, and then Jeff Lebby going to Mississippi State. Bunch of other ones as well. I think very recently San Diego State made their head coaching move after Brady Hoke retired. Sean Lewis came in from Colorado. So I'm curious. Let's start with Scout here. Which coach, first year coach at the new program, do you think can make the biggest turnaround at their new program in year one between Jonathan Smith, Elko, and Levy? Start with the Power Five ones.
Yeah, I think this one is a little bit more obvious than the Oklahoma fan base makes it seem. But Lebby going to Mississippi State is like a great hire in my opinion. He's going to be a high-powered offense. It's what they need. I think Will Rogers will definitely be a little ticked off that he's not there with them. But I think Lebby definitely has a chance to get that spark back that the Pirate left. So I would go Lebby there.
Yeah, Rogers entering the portal, I definitely think that makes Mississippi State kind of have a real shot to get a electric quarterback to kind of jazz up the offense a little bit. I think they're going to be a huge factor in the portal. So I definitely don't disagree with you there. Adam, what do you think?
Um, yeah, I'm leaning towards agreeing. I don't know if it's super obvious. Mississippi State, Zach Arnett just didn't work. I understand, they kind of had to do what they had to do. They had to kind of promote him just to keep the ship together. But going back to their roots, offense, Mississippi State, Jeff Lebby. I think Oklahoma offense looked great this year. He's very similar with Ole Miss, obviously. So for that rivalry, that's something that Ole Miss is kind of like their Super Bowl. You got to beat Ole Miss. So I like the hire. I lean towards Mike Elko just because the funds that Texas A&M have that they're going to throw in NIL and in the portal. I mean, it's you say it's hard to not do good at that job, and then there's Jimbo Fisher who didn't do well at the job. But even not doing well, A&M they still. I mean, with that roster, you're going to win 6-7 games minimum, even if
Yeah.
you really can't even coach. And we know Mike Elko. He's only been at Duke 2 years, right? He
Mhm.
only has two
Yeah.
years of head coaching, but I think he's a good coach, so he can turn around. I think they can get 8-9 wins, and their schedule next year is not hard. They don't have Georgia, they don't have Alabama. I think they're going to be favored in pretty much every game except Texas, so they could win 9-10 games next year just based off scheduling alone. So I'm gonna go with Mike Elko.
Yeah, I agree with you there because Elko is a guy who also understands the program, understands recruiting
Yes.
the area. He was at A&M for 4 years
Mm-hmm.
as their defensive coordinator. And I mean, I think it's pretty easy to argue that turning around Duke was a much harder challenge than turning around Texas A&M probably will be. The recruiting aspect, I think they'll be just fine. Transfer portal, I'm sure they will be active. But that Duke team was really bad before Elko came in. I think they were 3-9 the year before he got there. Didn't win an ACC game. Won 9 games in his first year. Won a bowl game. Were well on pace to compete for an ACC title this year. A lot of injuries happened, namely to Riley Leonard. But that team the last couple of years is just completely different from the Duke teams that we've seen over the last decade plus. And Elko was a huge reason for that. We talked to Riley Leonard on the transfer portal YouTube account. I think that was during the spring, maybe shortly after the spring. And he was just raving about Mike Elko and the culture change. And that's a huge thing that makes me believe Mike Elko will be the right guy for the job, is because he's a culture guy. And Texas A&M, I think, is in need of a culture guy to kind of set the standard. And Elko, I think, can do that, having understood, the program, the expectations that are there in College Station, and his ability to recruit in that area. So I'm going to lean with you, Adam. I think Mike Elko is the guy there. But shout out to Jonathan Smith. I think he will
Yeah.
get Michigan State turnaround. I just don't think it's going to be year one, because there's a lot of wrong that's going on in that program right now. They're losing a lot of talent, obviously, with the coaching change and all the craziness that's happened at Michigan State over the last year. But I think Jonathan State will get that ship turned around, and they might be a contender once again in a couple years in the Big Ten. But there are a lot of remaining vacancies still left. I mean, obviously, it's early in the coaching carousel. Things are still going to change. There's going to be more vacancies that pop up. Of the ones that are left, which one do you guys think is the most intriguing? And Adam, let me roll back with you.
Um, I I was going back and forth with this one. I think I have to say right now Houston,
Hmm.
because of mainly the location, like where they are. The city of Houston, there's so much talent there that we've seen it with Tom Herman. If you're able to just recruit inside of the city, you can be competitive, especially in the new look Big 12 without Oklahoma, without Texas. I know you have, Utah gonna have something to say, Arizona, Oklahoma State, but that there's no really top heavy teams in that conference, so it's kind of up for the picking, and you're in a hotbed for recruiting. We saw with Houston basketball, if they win, they can be committed. They'll dump funds in to get the facilities and everything like that to be competitive with the other surrounding big Texas schools. So the commitment's there. The recruits are in your backyard. The conference is, I'm not gonna say very winnable, but it's winnable compared to a lot of the other Power Fives as of right now. I mean, I think that checks all the boxes for me, honestly.
Scout, how about you?
Um, hmm, he stole mine. I was gonna say Houston. Um, but
It
and
might
I
just be
will
the right
just
answer, you
uh,
know.
uh I'll piggyback there a little bit, but I do have another one. Um, I will say Houston is one of those teams that, especially in the conference that they're in, it's like they could definitely take the next step. And I think that firing Dana was basically like, hey, we've hit our ceiling with Dana. This is not the ceiling that we want. I think they see other teams performing well in the lower division like SMU, and then they see teams that are in their same state, in their same conference, aka, Texas, Texas Tech, etc. I think they just want better. But there's one that I have my eye on right here. It's the only Sun Belt opening currently. There will definitely be more after it, but ULM, and for one reason and one reason alone, is because if someone gets their hands on this program, I think that they could actually be solid. I know there's a lot of people that say ULM has a terribly small budget and everything, but it's like if there's a coach, and we just talked about Elko and how Elko helped Duke out to a point, and they went to A&M, and I think there's a lot of like Steve Spurrier type vibe there. Um, but I think someone could take ULM and make them a not necessarily a powerhouse, but a good 7-5, 8-14, and then they could like show their shine to like per se. So also there's just not that many interesting openings, but also honorable mention here because I totally forgot about it. Um, New Mexico. I know there's a bunch of
Hmm.
people that say like Jimbo might be heading to like a Mountain West school after a year. So like yeah, like New Mexico, San Diego State, that type of thing. So
Fascinating. ULM is one I definitely would not have thought of, but I mean, look at what GJ Kinney just did at Texas State. I think that Texas State program was as low as they could get in the FBS level, maybe minus UMass.
yeah,
Um, and he turned them around quickly, showed that you can, bring in transfers and you can win games in that conference. That's a tough conference that they're playing in.
yeah,
And, Louisiana, I'm sure there's going to be a number of schools that Louisiana kids will want to go to over ULM. But I think if they can get the right coach, and I would imagine it might be from the FCS level, one of those
Mhm.
outstanding programs in the FCS. I I think you might be onto something there. I think ULM could be something in a couple years if they get the right guy. So yeah,
And
that's a good call. But
to add there, the Sun Belt, like I'm a huge Fun Belt enthusiast. People know that I post Troy stuff all the time. But um like we have John Summerall at Troy. There's Billy Napier just left Louisiana, but he started at Louisiana as a head coach. And then like there's just so much head coaching talent. Even you can go back the Troy tree to like Neil Brown and stuff. But there's so much head coach growth in the conference. And there's plenty that go on in other Group of Five schools, but I think the Sun Belt itself, if you do a really good job, you can get a really good job. So
absolutely. That's a good call. I want to see if you might be right. If ULM could be, um, one of those turnaround teams, one of those stories that we hear, in a couple of seasons. But I still think Boise State might be the most interesting one, only because that team rallied after Avalos got fired. And I think that was the right move. Maybe the timing wasn't so much the right move, but that team seemed to rally around it once they got healthy. Had some really tough games coming up in order to get to where they're at now, and they won a lot of those games. But I mean, this is still a program with a huge amount of championship expectations every single season. It's a program obviously with recent championship history and a pedigree, but you can't deny the history that program has in the Mountain West and is probably going to continue to have. And I think they want to get an offensive minded head coach to bring them back to, um, kind of the roots that they have. I think Spencer Danielson has done a really nice job as the interim coach. I wouldn't be surprised if he's one of the top candidates to keep that job with the way that they've been performing down the stretch. But I'd keep an eye on that one. Maybe they make a big splashy move to say, hey, we're still the cream of the crop in the Mountain West and in the Group of Five. So I keep an eye on Boise State. Avalos, I thought might have been the guy to take them there, even though he was a defensive minded guy. But because he was an alum, played there, thought he would understand it. And I really don't think that they reached anywhere near the ceilings that they should have with that talent that they had. So I want to see them make a really splashy move. It
Kellen
doesn't
Moore
have to
to
be a
Boise
huge
State
name.
confirmed.
It doesn't have to be a huge name. I just think somebody that's a culture guy that understands, the history of that program and can win. And I would lean an offensive minded guy just because they have that history and they have so much talent and are probably going to continue to have so much talent on that side of the ball. I'd like to see them go back to those ways. So my answer would be Boise State and that one. But I like the explanation for UOM and for Houston. I definitely think you guys are onto something there.
Sound like you just made a pitch for Kellen Moore again.
Hey, I honestly don't hate it. I would like him to take over for Brandon Staley once he inevitably gets fired. Um, but Boise State, yeah, if something was to happen, I definitely think Kellen Moore would be like the first person they call. If
there
Brandon
was
Staley probably doesn't get fired because the Chargers are just the cheapest organization in the NFL, but that's a whole nother podcast episode that we can get into. But if he stays, Kellen Moore, I have a feeling that Boise State would give him a call pretty quickly.
so this is one to keep an eye on, a coach to keep an eye on. But Cliff Kingsbury has been
Mhm.
today. I've seen his name pop up quite a few times. And if you're talking about a offensive minded college coach, and I was trying to remember, I had to look up the article. Yeah, I had to look up the article here, but Sports Illustrated has a that Kingsbury may be the top replacement for Houston. So that ties about everything we just talked about together.
I don't
I
know if
don't
I
I don't
like
think
that.
likes that one.
I don't know. I mean, short term, I think it's a smart hire, but with him, it just seems like he'll be there for 3 years. If it goes well, he's gone. And if it goes bad, he's gonna be gone. Short term, it makes sense, right? If they're just trying to win now and take advantage of the little like the how down the conference is right now, then sure, yeah, go for it. We know I'm saying he's not a good college coach, but I think he goes to Houston. He'll probably go well because he's familiar with that area in the state, and then he's going to be gone. He's going to be in whoever, Florida. I don't know, just some bigger school. But
Yeah, we'll be talking about him on this exact podcast,
yeah,
this exact
in
topic in
three
a couple
years from
years from
now,
now.
it's going to be the next coach of Ohio State or whoever.
Well, that's definitely one that people are talking about as if that might become an opening here soon, Ryan Day, because I mean, here's the thing, they're winning a lot of games, but like he's 1-3 against Michigan. That's all that matters for Ohio State fans. Ask any one of them is beating
Yeah,
Michigan. I don't even feel like they care about, the college football player for the national championship as much as they do beating Michigan. That's what it feels like to me.
the good thing is you can't
So
do one without the other, so it's kind of like you got to do
yeah,
both.
because Michigan's not losing to anybody else. So yeah, that's definitely true. So as we've kind of alluded to, the transfer portal is wide open. We've all seen a lot of different names that have popped up into the portal. But I think the interesting trend this year is that there's a huge amount of starting quarterbacks, like Power Five caliber starting quarterbacks that have entered the portal. And I'm curious to see where we start to see some schools emerge as quarterback needy because we obviously know there's going to be a huge vacancy with a lot of quarterbacks going to the draft, probably first round, and there's going to be a lot of teams that are looking to, get 1 year rentals, 2 year rentals, whatever it might be. And I think there are a lot of guys that fit that mold because. I mean, Riley Leonard, a lot of people are saying he's already going to be at Notre Dame. That kind of seems to be the consensus belief. But I mean, Will Howard, Grayson McCall, Will Rogers, we talked about earlier, Tyler Van Dyke, Matthew Sluka is a guy not to sleep on, Holy Cross, Tyler Shuck, Mitch Griffiths, Max Brown, Ethan Kaligmanis, Brendan Sorsby. These are all, Power Five caliber starting quarterbacks. Um, and Blake Shapen is another one from Baylor. Um, there are so many guys that can make an impact at a number of programs. And like we've seen year after year, guys can take over that quarterback spot and immediately change offenses, change programs, like some of the guys who are, in the running for the Heisman Trophy. So I'm curious, which teams do you think will be in the market and saying, hey, let's offer all these quarterbacks, let's get these quarterbacks on campus, this winter? Scout, let me start with you.
Um, there's some specific ones, and then like there's some like we're gonna cast a net so wide. And I feel like a specific one would be like I think TCU,
Hmm.
specifically Kendall Briles wants KJ Jefferson. I know I saw a lot of like backlash from TCU fans, like just like looking it up earlier, but there is a connection there. KJ was definitely better beforehand or while with Kendall. He was the OC or quarterback coach, I forget. Um, 2 years ago, last year, one of the two. And then to go on with that, I know Auburn is definitely going to be looking for someone. They're probably looking for anyone at this point. Um, I'm not even sure if any of their quarterbacks are going to be staying by the end of the year. But there's probably even other ones that aren't necessarily as prevalent right now, like LSU. Like LSU has a Heisman caliber quarterback currently who's draft bound, but their backup just entered the portal, I think. And I know, or maybe I'm confusing A&M and LSU, but I know A&M's did as well. So you could be seeing like A&M, Mississippi State, LSU, Auburn, like all the current SEC West teams not named Alabama, looking for a significant quarterback. And I know I just listed a bunch of Southern teams, but there's plenty of other teams as well. I know Oregon, they've been kind of rattled in the quarterback depth chart, and Bo's gone after this year. Same thing with USC and a few more. I could totally see like a Max Brown going to a big time school like that. Um, and I know one quarterback, I forget his name, the Washington State quarterback.
Cam
Um,
Ward.
Reward.
yeah, yeah. Him transferring. That's gonna be a huge one. And I think he's like a nationally sought after quarterback. I think some of these quarterbacks, it's like a Will Rogers. He's definitely gonna want to stay in the SEC just because he wants that title of all-time leading passer. Um, but I think Cam Ward could go anywhere he wants to. And yeah, but I think basically any school that doesn't have a top tier quarterback going into next year, they're going to be on the market. So if you're not named Georgia or Alabama or um, I can't even think of or Texas, then you're probably looking for a quarterback next year.
You mentioned Texas A&M. Did was it Wegman that Wegman didn't enter the portal,
It
right?
was Max Johnson.
It was Max
Oh, okay,
Johnson.
okay. I was,
Yeah,
I
he's
was like,
already at North
oh,
Carolina though.
whoa.
He's off the board.
Yeah, yeah, okay, okay. Um, yeah, it's kind of like what you said. Two teams instantly came to mind. The number one team, I hate to stay in the Big 12, but it's Oklahoma State. Um, Ollie Gordon's gonna be back next year. I'm pretty sure he is a true sophomore, so he has one more year. I'm like not 80% sure.
Yeah.
So if he's gonna be there next year, like you mentioned earlier, the Big 12's wide open. He's one of the best running backs in the country. Mike Gundy, we know he's a good coach. Go get you a real good quarterback, and I mean that's a playoff team, I think, with Mike Gundy, Ollie Gordon, and if you can maybe go get whoever doesn't a quarterback that can run that offense in the Big 12 that is weak. I think that's a playoff push for Mike Gundy. Another one that I thought was Florida. Florida's schedule is rough next year. I think Graham Mertz is coming back, but is he the guy? I'm looking at Florida's schedule. They have A&M, Tennessee, Georgia, obviously Florida State, LSU, Ole Miss, Texas, Miami. I mean, that could be easily 6 losses. If you're Billy Napier, his job's on the line next year. You're gonna put your trust in Graham Harrell for your job? I don't think so. I think Florida will be active in the transfer portal, mainly because Billy Napier will if he wants to keep his job. So I'm gonna go with those two.
Interesting. I do want to confirm one thing. So Cameron Ward is not in the portal yet. There have been a lot of rumors about him getting huge offers from a bunch of other Power Five schools. Seems like a lot of Ohio State fans seem to want him next year. But he is not officially in the portal yet. I honestly wouldn't really be surprised if he did enter, but he's not in there as of yet. So I did want to confirm that. Um, but one of the first teams that came to my mind was Florida State, only because, Jordan Travis is gone. And I think the jury might still be out on Tate Rodemaker. Um, he handled himself fairly well in that Florida game. So I have to give him credit for that. But, if he doesn't really prove to be the guy on that huge stage against Louisville and whatever bowl game they might have later on, maybe they try to bring somebody else in. I'm curious about Kansas State. Avery Johnson's a super talented guy, but he didn't get a whole lot of, throwing experience this year. So I'm curious about if they bring in a veteran to help him along. Um, I don't know if it's necessarily necessary because I think he's got a lot of talent. He could probably jump in right away. Maybe a UCLA. I'm wondering if guys might transfer from there. Dante Moore, a lot of people seem to think is going to transfer. I think Colin Schley is a super talented guy, so I could see them running with him. Ethan Garbers was playing just fine for a lot of that season, but those are some teams I thought of. Oregon is probably going to be active as well. Maybe UW. Dylan Morris is there for like the 8,000th year, so maybe he's still the guy. They have another younger quarterback, like Austin Mack, I believe. Super talented kid. He could be the guy, but I have a feeling that those two teams, losing their Heisman caliber quarterbacks, they might be on the market, but I don't know, man. I have a feeling that transfer rentals are going to be the new trend for years and years to come because look at some of the Heisman candidates. I mean, Michael Penix transfer, Jaden Daniels transfer, Caleb Williams transfer, Bo Nix transfer. Like it's just going to be this thing every year now where these guys are going to come in, they're going to start right away, and they're just going to take offenses to new heights. And I have a feeling that some of these guys that are in the portal, whether it be a Grayson McCall, whether it be a Will Howard, maybe even Tyler Van Dyke, I'm a huge believer that if Tyler Van Dyke ends up at, a huge program with an elite offensive play caller, really good weapons, he will ball out because Mario Cristobal will. I'm trying to figure out the way to word this. he limits quarterbacks. He limits offenses. He has kind of a chokehold on the play calling at his schools. We've seen it at Oregon. We've seen it at Miami. And to me, Tyler Van Dyke, yeah, he does take some of the blame for their offensive struggles the last couple of years. But I feel like if he ends up with an elite play calling coach and a lot of really good weapons around him, I think he could be one of those, Heisman caliber quarterbacks in the next couple of years. That's how I feel about TBD.
Do y'all think Dylan Gabriel follows Jeff Lebby, Mississippi State?
It's a
Does
good
it doesn't
question.
I think he has.
He has his grad transfer, right? I think
Yeah, yeah, but I'm
yeah.
I'm wondering. Hold on. I'm gonna look up an NFL draft report because I
He
think
has
I've
one more
seen.
year.
Okay. Well, it says that there was a report from October and a report from November that he was still in the mix on the 2024 draft. So I don't know exactly. I assume he would be making that decision the next month though. But
Yeah. Well, I mean, Jackson Arnold is another guy who's super talented
I
behind
think
him. Maybe that's a guy that goes over.
I think Jackson Arnold's I think Oklahoma wants him to start, and I think that's what I was thinking.
Mm,
And maybe Dylan Gabriel just follows Jeff Lebby.
interesting. I mean, he's done it from UCF to Oklahoma. Maybe one more stop. That would be interesting.
Yeah.
crazy idea, fellas. But can y'all imagine? Because in July, and I think it's something that people have forgotten about over the last year. But I'm pretty sure the last thing I saw was that the next college football game is releasing next like this July. I'm pretty sure. Hold on.
Yeah.
Oh, video
And
game.
Yeah.
yes, and that's gonna be nuts with all this different because it's supposed to release in July, which is
Oh
obviously
yeah.
before the season starts. And I think if EA has any idea, they would love to add in some spice with some of this like transfer portal stuff.
Well, they have
And
to.
well, like it's already been told that's in the game, but I could totally see them seeing it now, like seeing right now how it is, and then just like ramping it up um in the game. Like because it I think this is by far from a quarterback, running back, receiver standpoint, it's gonna be the most crazy year. Like we had like Tej
Mm,
Johnson was a big time receiver off the board last year, but like this is quarterback wise, I think it's like four times more
Yeah.
than any other year, and we're 2 days in, 3 days in.
Is this
yeah.
it hasn't even
Um,
opened up yet? These are all
Yeah. It's not even officially
graduates.
open yet, technically.
These
yeah, but it's just, and I think a lot of these guys are transferring. Like I know last year there was a ton that like Grayson McCall, he
Mhm.
he entered the portal and then went back. Um, but
Michael Pratt too, didn't he? Did Michael Pratt?
yeah, there was a ton
No, I don't
that
think he did.
Yeah, I know he was talking with teams.
I
Yeah,
think
there
Pratt
were
went on
rumors.
visits. He went on visits, but I don't think he actually did anything.
Yeah. Yeah, that NCAA video game, they have to include the transfer portal. They have to include like all the elements of it because it's, to respect my decision, 1000% committed, like all that sort of stuff too. The recruiting trail, like they've got to include all that stuff
Hold on,
because
could you imagine? I don't mean to get too off topic, but in Madden they have like connected franchise where you can play franchise with your friends. I'd be so mad if my buddy poached my starting quarterback off my
Oh,
team. He's just like going, I'm asleep. He's messaging my quarterback in Madden trying to get him to hit the portal and come to his team. I'd be so upset.
that would be so funny, bro. Because they did have like online dynasty,
Mhm.
but that would be crazy. Like if I and I would pull that. I would be the one.
Yeah.
I would be like Bear Bryant, bro. Like I'm like I might have an 80 overall quarterback, and your quarterback might have to sit on my bench, but then you'll have a 60. But yeah.
oh
That'd be
man. So
hilarious.
as we're 2 days into the unofficial transfer portal, it doesn't officially open until December 4th, but it's essentially as open as it would be on December 4th. But outside of quarterbacks, what's been the most surprising entry? You can't include quarterbacks, but including everybody, possession wise, top to bottom, what's been the most surprising entry so far?
Um, I'm not gonna lie, I haven't been paying much attention to who's been entering. It's been so crazy, just so much going on. I've been really talking about coaches. I was surprised that Will Howard left Kansas State. I thought he had a really good relationship with that coaching staff, and I understand Avery Johnson was getting more and more touches throughout the season. Maybe he saw something in practice like I'm not going to be the guy, or he didn't want to compete for, sometimes you don't want to be in a quarterback battle, but you never know, right? But I thought he would stay because, I mean, I keep saying the Big 12 is winnable. It's a great offense for him. He knows the offense. They're going to score points. I think they're going to be able to win games. They proven they know how to build a roster. And if his goal is to go to the NFL, you're kind of taking a chance to where you're going to an unknown situation when this might be your last shot at the NFL. And
Mm.
so, but he's taking a chance. He's betting on himself. So I'm rooting for him.
So I
As
have
long as he
one,
doesn't play Texas.
and you're gonna think that this is a sickos no context college football moment,
All for it.
but uh, I don't know if it's Sheeta or the other way that you can pronounce that, but I'll say it. But he's a dog. He's one of the Boston College transfers. He went in the portal 2 days ago. I think he went on, yeah, first day. Um, he's a dog. He has a funny name. But he could be a great player at the Power Five level. He could be one of those guys that probably gets highly recruited from a group of five school. And you were just talking about making the NFL. I think especially at cornerstone positions like offensive line, defensive line, like competing helps at the Power Five level, but if they can see just your raw like dog come out, then you can just like you can be a stud. So that would be one of my guys.
One guy that just entered the portal, I think a couple of hours ago, is Georgia State running back Marcus Carroll, who had 1,300 yards, 13 touchdowns this year. I'm not really surprised. I would say that he transferred. I felt like he might, be an NFL guy after another year or two. But I do think that this is a guy to keep an eye out for with a huge Power Five program, maybe a Kansas State with Trayshawn Ward transferring. I definitely think that he could be an immediate impact guy. We talked to Sean Elliott right before the season when we did our college football preview magazine, and he was raving about Marcus Carroll. And I feel like a lot of people that were really tuned into this program were worried about their running back position because they were losing two really productive guys. I think there were two leading rushers in program history, and Marcus Carroll just came in and said, nope, there's no worries here. And he ran with it. He was one of the leading rushers all year long. And I think he's a guy who could be an immediate impact player at a Power Five program easily. So I don't want to say I'm surprised by him entering, but he's going to make some noise. He's going to be one of the top guys that we're talking about as, who is one of the best transfers this season. We're going to be talking about him because he is an elite running back in my mind. So shout out to Marcus Carroll. Alrighty. So as we sit here on November 29th, we had the penultimate college football rankings. So the last ones before the ones that actually matter. And I'm my biggest thing with the college football playoff rankings that came out was Ohio State's ranking because we knew obviously they were undefeated coming in. They lose to Michigan, one possession game, but you still have the other one loss teams. Now they're part of the one loss bunch with Oregon, Texas, Alabama. Where do they fit in there? I I thought they were a little bit higher than they should have been. They were sixth behind Oregon, but in front of Texas and Alabama. I don't know if I would have put them in front of Texas or Alabama. I think I could probably see the argument for over Alabama, but I honestly think they could have been eight behind those other two teams with the way that Texas and Alabama are playing. Adam, I know you're a Texas guy, so how did you feel when Ohio State was above Texas in the rankings?
I was worried because it's not necessarily where Ohio State is, it's where Oregon is. How
Mm.
Oregon was able to jump Ohio State, but Texas and Alabama weren't. It's kind of shows, and people say like the rankings don't matter, everything will figure itself out, right? To me, the rankings do matter because this shows that the committee views Oregon that much more over Texas
Mhm.
and Alabama, that Oregon can jump Ohio State, but Texas and Alabama can't. So to me, that tells me that they think there's a gap between those three teams, and the gap is that big where one team can jump them, but the others can't. So it leads me to believe that there's a scenario where Oregon Oregon wins, they're in, right? I mean, I'm okay with that. But if Oregon Washington game is very competitive, say it's 45-43, Oregon wins on a field goal, right? There's it this tells me that they think that Washington could still get in over a Texas. If Alabama wins, I think they get in, but over a Texas because they're Oklahoma State. They're a good team, but it's not Washington, right? It's not Georgia. So where Ohio State is, I mean, now there's a very slim chance that they get in. It has to be the perfect scenario. They need like four teams to lose, in my opinion. But the committee sees a gap between Oregon, Texas, and Alabama. And I just don't see that big of a gap. If you think Oregon is better, fine. Like that's okay. But the gap is that big where they get to jump Ohio State, but the other two don't. I don't know.
Or do you agree with that?
Yeah, so hmm, I stayed up way too late last night talking with a friend about this because we were going over all the scenarios about can two SEC teams go in. Obviously needs Bama to win. And then we realized that like every scenario that Bama wins in, it's really hard to move out Bama, which makes the fourth spot so like if FSU wins, which I'm not sure if they would, but if FSU does win, they're in, right? And then if the winner of Oregon Washington is in no matter what, almost, right? And then if uh uh who's the other one up there? If Michigan wins, they're in. So that's three spots that are basically locked up before we even get Texas and Ohio State. And now I think they change depending on if Alabama wins. I think in that scenario, Alabama's fourth, and then you put Georgia five, et cetera, et cetera. But I do see the concern there from a Texas fan where it's like, well, Alabama would already be the eighth team knocking off the one, and then that would be a very impressive win, whereas it wouldn't be as impressive, especially if it's a close game. Because like if they go into Dallas and they beat or Arlington and they beat Oklahoma State by three touchdowns, that's a completely different thing than oh, we had to have a game-winning drive from Quinn Ewers. Um, but I still think that Texas is in a win and in scenario. You do need a lot to go wrong for that to happen. But yeah, uh, I think though it is right, even though I don't necessarily like Ohio State. I think that they do deserve that spot with basically the win over Notre Dame puts them up there for me.
Let
If
me ask you all this.
oh,
Do you think you think like can you are you able to put Alabama in without putting Texas in? Like people say, I understand this two loss SEC thing, but I don't think you can if Alabama is in and Texas beat them. I think you have to put Texas in too,
yeah,
especially if Florida State loses over Georgia.
See, that's what I'm
oh,
I
oh,
most
feel
for
like you
curious
have
sure,
about.
to. I
for
feel like you
sure,
have
like
to.
Yeah.
in that scenario, because I think the one that and we'll go into this more in the picks, but the one that played out the most in our head realistically would be like a Louisville win, a Texas win, an Oregon win, and then like we were just flip-flopping Georgia, Alabama to see like what would be the most chaotic part. And then if like so if Texas wins, Michigan wins, Louisville wins, and then Bama wins, then you would have a top four of Michigan in no order, no order. Michigan, Oregon, uh, Bama, Texas, in no order. Um, but it was like it gets really weird, honestly, if Georgia wins. I know that sounds crazy, but there's more fluidity if Georgia loses. So if
Yeah.
Georgia wins, it gets real tight. Like,
Because there's only one spot now to argue about, really,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
and I know the Iowa head coach said the bit about, well, if we win, we would mess up the playoffs, but I don't think anyone has Iowa winning, although I know a lot of people have picked them to cover. The 21 point spread is insane to me.
Yeah.
If
So
Iowa does win, does Michigan get in still? You know, like,
that's another question. I mean, that loss kind of looks bad, but it's there's
probably.
not very many wins in college football that are better than beating Ohio State. Um, so they might hold that. And what else do they have? I guess to win at Penn State, but how highly does the committee view Penn State? But you brought up a point, Scout, that I'm interested in is with those undefeateds losing when those teams fall into the one loss bunch. Let's say Texas wins, Alabama wins, and then Oregon beats Washington. Could Texas pass a Georgia? Could Texas pass? I have a really good feeling they would pass a Florida State, but could they pass a Washington? Um, like you said, Pac-12 win and you're in. I think that's pretty safe to say. Michigan, if they win, they're in. Florida State, I think there's no shot if they lose, they're in.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my thing is like, how highly would Texas be favored against a one-loss Georgia to get in? Considering all the things that we were talking about, and then um, Alabama, yeah, I think Alabama winning would actually make things a little bit more clear for the rest of the conferences because it's pretty safe to say that Michigan's a lock for the playoff. I think we can all safely assume Michigan's a lock for the playoff. ACC is up in the air. Florida State wins. I think they're in. If they lose, no ACC team. Pac-12 win and you're in. There's not going to be two teams. Um, that really just leaves it up to Texas how dominant they can be for them to even have a shot. To me, I think they would have to really beat Oklahoma State by a lot in order to have a shot, unless we get a lot of chaos. Iowa wins, Louisville wins, Alabama wins, things like that. So
Yeah.
I don't think they deserve to be in that position. I think they're like you said. I would put Texas over Ohio State pretty safely because the way that they're playing, they're a really complete team. They're playing their best ball, I would argue, right now. Um, Ohio State, to me, that Notre Dame win, I don't hold it as highly as other people do. I think at the time it was one of the better wins in college football.
The game was
Um,
hideous, though.
it was yeah, they really had to fight for it, and there was just a chaotic ending to that game. But if that's their best win, I think Texas would win over that because they beat Alabama on the road. So if we're going off of that alone, I think Texas should have a shot over Ohio State. I think they should be number six.
Yeah, I think resume wise, I don't think anybody can really match Texas unless Alabama beats Georgia. Then Alabama will have the better resume, in my opinion. But
Or if you're comparing the losses, then Texas has the worst loss because Ohio State only lost to Michigan. But to me, I'd
yeah,
favor who has the
I
better
think
wins over.
comparing losses is lame.
Yeah, I agree with you. I
Especially
definitely agree with you.
unless the wins match up. If the wins match up, then sure
Yeah,
go to the losses. But if they don't, then whatever. You lost to your rival.
yeah.
The 12th best team in the country. Okay. But
Alrighty. Do we have any other feelings on the college football playoff rankings before we move on to our picks?
I had to,
um
I have to say this. I hate the fact that they hate the Sun Belt. It's like no matter what the Sun Belt does, I get that you can't rank JMU, right? But you could have
Yeah, you
ranked
can.
Troy. No, no, no. Literally, legally, they couldn't rank like Jacksonville State or JMU
Well,
in
the
the co
playoff rankings can't.
in
Yeah,
the
AP
playoff.
can do whatever
Yeah,
they want. Playoff,
yeah.
yeah, no, they
That's
can't.
why. But that's why JMU is ranked in the coaches poll and the AP poll, but they're not ranked in the. But it's to me, it's like it tells because like I'm big on like I love because I know Adam has on the Cotton Bowl cap, right? And I love watching the New Year's Six and like, hey, like who's gonna be that top team to go in? And I thought it should have been Troy last year, but now we're gonna hit another point where it's like Troy scheduled an SEC team and got walloped by them, and now we're obviously they have that second loss, which was to Kansas State, but still, right?
Two good
Um,
teams. I
yeah,
mean,
but it's just insane to me. And it was like I wanted them to be 25 because if they were 25, then I would have been like, okay, if you win and then you need a little bit of chaos in the group of five, and you can get that. I don't know exactly which ranking they go off anymore, if it's the AP or if it's just the college football final
I
ranking.
think it's just college football.
Well, yeah,
But
just playoff.
I will say the fact that they didn't put Tulane at like 16 makes me like less mad because I think they're 23 this time around. But last year they were like 16 and Troy was only 24 at the very last one. I was like, okay. But yeah, but that's my little Sunbelt rant for the end of it.
Hey, Scout, I'm all for going after the college football playoff. If Texas gets screwed, me and you, we can form a mob. Uh,
Amen.
they 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 meet down the street in Dallas, so just come on through. We'll form a mob. We'll go up there and we'll raise hell. I'm all for it.
And we'll tear down the bodacious sign while we're at it.
Yeah, yeah. We'll just tear down the whole building. I know exactly the hotel they meet. I know exactly where they're at.
Hey, if Oregon wins, I don't give a damn about that sign. I don't think any Oregon fan would either. Do whatever you want. But fighting words on the podcast here, I'm enjoying it. Let's get into our conference championship games. I'm going to start with the Conference USA championship game, New Mexico State versus Liberty. This is honestly a very exciting matchup between some pretty contrast styles. So, Scout, let me start with you. Who is your pick and why?
I love Jerry Kill, but the mountain is going to be rocking, and I don't think that they have the I don't think they have the firepower to overcome that. So I'm gonna take Liberty and probably Liberty by 10 points. But I do think it'll be close. But I think Liberty just has like Hugh Freeze did a great job building that program, and he didn't really tear it down with taking transfers out or anything. So um, and Jamie Chadwell has done a great job of just like keeping the boat steady. So
Yeah, I'm gonna go Liberty as well. I think they're in a position with Jamie Chadwell. I think they're gonna be able to run that conference for 10 years. It wouldn't surprise me if they win 6 out of the next 10, barring any injuries. I mean,
Sleep on
they
Delaware.
yeah, they got a good thing going over there, and don't see it uh sinking anytime soon. So I'm gonna go with Liberty.
I this matchup's been set for a couple weeks now, and I've been of the belief that Liberty was the better team than New Mexico State. And I still kind of believe that. However, last week, New Mexico State did something against Jacksonville State that proved to me that they could potentially hang with a Liberty team. They completely shut down Jacksonville State, held them to 17 points. New Mexico State's offense didn't really need to be all that electric to beat that Jacksonville State team. Not very many teams that rush the ball better in FBS than Jacksonville State. Liberty is one of them. Nobody runs the ball better than Liberty. So to me, I think that the fact that they were able to handle Jacksonville State, a red hot Jacksonville State team, gives me confidence that New Mexico State has what it takes to be able to beat this team with such high caliber players. Caden Salter, Quentin Cooley, they have a lot of really talented players. I definitely think that New Mexico State has a really good shot at winning this one, and I will pick them to win this one and win their 11th game. Give me New Mexico State. Shout out to Jerry Kill and Diego Pavia, state champion wrestler Diego Pavia. That is. Sticking with Friday, Pac-12 championship, huge one. Like we already talked about, winning you're in for the college football playoff. As a Pac-12 fan, you got to feel pretty good. You're finally getting a guaranteed Pac-12 team in the college football playoff after so long. Oregon versus Washington, rematch of one of the games of the year.
um
It, is Michael Penix healthy? He hasn't looked healthy in like a month.
He'll be playing. He won't miss
I
this
know he's
game.
gonna play, but is he gonna be Michael Penix is the question. And this line tells me that he's not. I mean, his Oregon minus like 9.5.
Yeah,
I
last I
think
saw.
that's wild.
yeah. I do think one thing as well is isn't the Oregon championship played indoors?
It is in Vegas. Yeah.
The
If
only game that oh, someone's gonna stat check me
oh
here.
geez,
The only game that Bo Nix has lost indoors, and I saw it straight from like some bar in Auburn, was the Oregon Georgia opening
I
week
knew
game
it.
last year.
I
That
knew it.
and this and look, Washington ain't they ain't 2022 or yeah 2022 Georgia. So I don't think there's that much to worry about. Obviously, it's a good team, but yeah, but I think Oregon wins. I don't think they cover though in a weird way because Dan Lanning has treated every game like we're gonna run the ball out, except for Colorado. Every other game, like we're gonna run the ball out after we go up 30 or 40 points. So, and I don't think they'll go up 30 or 40 points, but I think like he'll get to like a two score lead, like a 15, 16 point lead, and then he'll be like, we're just gonna run the ball, and then they're gonna be like, okay. Um, so, but yeah.
So
Yeah,
you're taking Oregon?
Yeah.
I think
Word.
I'm taking Oregon as well. I think, like I said, Michael Penix, he just hasn't looked healthy last month and a half. Roman Duze is nice, but that defense, that Washington defense worries me a lot. So give me the Ducks. Quack quack.
I will
All
say,
right.
Big Ten, fear DeBoer. I have,
Oh,
uh, I hate that whenever I see like these like future Big Ten matchups or whatever, watch there, I'm like, he's not leaving at any time soon from what I see. And I think Washington is a terrible matchup for almost any Big Ten school not named Ohio State or Michigan. And yes, I'm including Penn State in there.
that fourth down play call he had was Washington State was brilliant. Chef's kiss.
Yeah, he's like there's a certain kind of play caller, like a Lane Kiffin, a Mike Leach, a Doug Peterson for professional aspect, that like they just know when to call a play. And sometimes it looks dumb. Like I'm a Jags fan. I watched Doug Peterson fail from like the 1 yard line to let time expire in the second half or the first half. But but then other times it's like another Jags reference. The Jags playoff game against the Chargers, where like we ran the wing T for first down. It's insane. And defense coordinators are like you have to be an Alabama type thing to stop it. So
Interesting. Yeah, I Oregon fans are not going to like that you brought up the Georgia game, and not just because they got the shit handed to them, but um, that's Dan Lanning's first game. Like that's just hard to compare. It's a whole different time. But yes, that was the only indoor game that they've played under Dan Lanning. So that part you are correct. And obviously the last time that they played in this stadium, they got the shit handed to them by Utah, with Anthony Brown as their quarterback, might I add. Um, but this Oregon team, to me, since that Washington loss, I don't think I've ever, I want to say ever more motivated team than what Dan Lanning has right now. Like they're kicking everybody's ass right now, and it's the most complete Oregon team that I've ever seen. Offense, defense. This team is stacked. Everybody's playing well. They're. I don't think they even need to run the ball so well. The last couple games, I don't think they've run the ball as efficiently as they would like. But Bo Nix has been playing at obviously a Heisman caliber level. He can do it with his legs as well. So I want to know if Bucky Irving is healthy, first of all, because he got banged up a couple games ago, I believe it was. I want to make sure that he's healthy, because he's torn up Washington the last couple of times that he's played him. Um, so I want to see if he's healthy, then we know that the run game is going to be effective. But I think Oregon has a really good shot at winning this game. I don't think they're going to cover either. I think this game might be
Really?
just as close as the first one. I definitely think so. It's still a rivalry game. These teams have never played twice in a season. The stakes are as high as they've ever been in this series. I think Washington's going to come to play. But I do like Oregon to get some revenge and win by 3, like they lost by 3.
Yeah. I think Dan Lanning wants that Heisman just as much as Bo Nix. I think they
Yeah.
might try and air it out, get a that Heisman, win big.
Yeah, I don't think he cares as much about the Heisman as he does a spot
I
in the
mean,
college football playoff.
I mean, you're gonna try and win, obviously, but I'm saying
Yeah,
if they're up 10, hey, let's keep going. Let's put some numbers on the board.
if they want to win, in my opinion, if they want to win, they're going to run that ball because Bucky Irving, like I said, has torched them the last couple of times that
True.
they've played. So balanced attack, I'm all for. MAC championship Saturday morning in Detroit, Miami, Ohio against Toledo. These two teams have 21 combined wins. I don't think there's ever been a MAC championship game with two teams with 10 plus wins.
Mhm. Right. As a Jaguar fan, I've been inclined to watch Miami, Ohio every single game this year. And I do have to say that they did get smacked against the other Miami, but they've played pretty well throughout it. And I know like Toledo, I'm pretty sure they're the odds-on favorite. I know a lot of people have picked them, but just something about the Miami, Ohio Redhawks. I think Redhawks, Warhawks, whatever, the Hawks.
Redhawks.
Yes, got it. But I think they're gonna win. I don't have a spread in front of me or anything, but I think they're gonna win. Tight game. So like I'll definitely, if you give me 7 points with Miami, Ohio, I'd probably take it. I could be eating crow on Saturday, but I'm taking the Red Hawks.
Yeah. Spread to 8, by the way, in favor of Toledo.
Give me it. Give me it right now.
I don't like that Miami was in a dogfight with Ball State last week, but
Mm.
I've been riding Miami all year. Pause. So I'm gonna keep going and give me the Red Hawks.
Alrighty. Just dropped a pause on the podcast. Give me Toledo, man. I mean, reigning MAC champions. They
Ooh.
have a very stout defense. DeQuan Finn's playing well, but to me, I think one of the biggest reasons why they're here is because Penny Boone has been one of the best running backs in the country, averaging 7 yards a carry. I think 1,300, 1,400 yards rushing. The guy's been an absolute animal. Is easily going to be one of the finalists for our Colt Brennan Award, which keep an eye out on those finalists this week. Give me Toledo. I think they're going to cover. I like Toledo in this one. I know I know Adam's going to like to talk about this one. Big 12, Oklahoma State against Texas. Texas 15.5 point favorite.
Yeah, I think this is the only game that style points matter.
Hmm.
I think Texas has to win big. If it's a close game, I think they're out. So Sark's gonna turn it on. He turned it on against Texas Tech. Didn't take his foot. It was literally all gas, no brakes the whole game. They were going out there trying to score. You're up 45, you go for it on fourth down because you know that you got to put on a show. Team's hungry. Oklahoma State's only chance it as to win in general is Ollie Gordon. He's amazing. But Texas is arguably has the best run defense in college football. They've shut down so many other teams that come from Kansas State, Kansas, Iowa State, Alabama. All these teams tried to run the ball. They couldn't. It's really going to come down. Can Brendan Presley and Bowman link up? I don't think they can to keep up with Texas. So, Texas, I think they cover. Then we get the style points.
So the Austin faithful will riot after I'm done talking. But I think last year was the year that the finger was rose to Texas and Oklahoma because neither of them were in the championship. But I think this year is the year that they get their heart ripped out right before leaving for the Southeastern Conference. I think Oklahoma State has a really gritty team. They have like a really want to team. I think it'll be a great game. I think it'll probably be one of the best Big 12 championships we've seen in a while. Um, that running attack from Oklahoma State, there's a lot of depth in it, a lot of width in it. Um, and I think one of the reasons that Alabama never really got going is because Alabama is a very downhill type team. They didn't really want to go outside. But I do think there is one. and South Alabama beat Oklahoma State early in the year in the craziest game I've ever watched. And I think that game opened up so many of like the flaws in Oklahoma State to the point that they've sewn up a lot of it, and they've been a dominant full control team the past 4 or 5 weeks especially. I don't think anyone saw them beating Oklahoma, and especially beating them with time to spare. Um, but yeah, but so I'm gonna take Oklahoma State by a little. But yeah,
Fascinating. Yeah, I Oklahoma State's defense to me is one of the biggest factors because they got torched by UCF a couple of weeks ago. Did not look very good at Houston. They needed a couple overtimes to beat BYU last week. The defense wasn't really helping them there against, I believe it was a backup quarterback that BYU had. Um, to me, that's going to be the biggest factor. I think Ollie Gordon's probably going to have, um, a fine game. But here's the thing: if Texas gets an early lead, we saw it against UCF. They're going to have to rely on Alan Bowman, and that didn't turn out well in that game against UCF. He threw 3 interceptions. Um, so I think Texas wins this one comfortably, but I don't know if it's comfortable enough to be convincing to get them like a surefire college football playoff spot. Maybe a 14, 17 point win, but not a dominant one from start to finish like Texas fans would hope for to get them into the playoff. But I think Texas wins this one. One of the weirder college football championship matchups in Boise State versus UNLV. Boise State got in because they beat Air Force, and San Jose State lost, or San Jose State beat UNLV. But UNLV is in because of math and computer rankings and all sorts of weird stuff. So, San Jose State fans, I'm sorry it is the way it is, but we got Boise State, UNLV. Scout, who you got for this one?
Did we lose him?
We lose you?
Out.
oh my fault. I was muted, bro. I was like halfway into a dialogue. I was like, oh, but this is one I would stay away from. But I'm a firm believer in the fired coach theory, aka basically whenever a coach gets fired, the team plays better, and it happens a lot, aka the Raiders. Um, but give me Boise State here.
All right.
Or you said
Adam?
Boise State, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, got it. Just making sure.
I want to know. First of all, I think it's hilarious how they decide who gets in. I think this just wipe your hands. Hey, don't get mad at us. It was the computer, San Jose. But it's kind of we mentioned it. You mentioned it earlier. Boise State. I mean, they're rolling. Big win against Air Force. The Broncos are hot. I'm gonna stick with them. You know, it's in Las Vegas too, right? Allegiant Stadium as well.
Let me double check on that. Uh,
Yeah, no, wait.
yes, it is.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's
It's
right
why that they have to play the Pac-12 championship on
on
Friday
Friday.
Yep.
because
So they're going to be
not
wiping off green and yellow confetti when they're getting ready for that game.
um but the crazy thing is that they would prefer the Saturday slot, but because UNLV is the host site, they went over that last year with like during the Las Vegas Bowl.
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
So if UNLV didn't make it, then Oregon
No. I'm
Washington
saying
is
In
I'm pretty
general,
sure
that's the
that
way it is.
yeah,
oh
like UNLV is the one getting the money essentially. So they would
mhm.
rather like their
Their conference.
conference
Oh,
get
okay.
the
Power move. I like it. Pull rank. That means said they're gonna lose. Give me Boise State.
I
Get your
I kind
money
of want
though.
UNLV to win this one
yeah,
because they haven't even been to a bowl game in 10 years, I believe it is. They've just broken all of the, first time since that's like everything this year has been for UNLV.
for
Um,
sure.
I really had no idea that they'd get this far without Doug Brumfield. I was a huge believer that he was their guy who was going to lead them here. And Jaden Mayava has done a phenomenal job. Ricky White's one of the top receivers in the country, not just a group of five. So that's always a nice safety blanket to have for a freshman quarterback. I think UNLV's has got a little bit of a chip. I think both teams have a chip on their shoulder, obviously, but I think UNLV has it because a lot of people don't feel like they should be in this game. Home field
Yeah.
advantage. I like UNLV to win a close one in this one, but I think Boise State's going to prove some people wrong and say like they don't have a head coach. Boise State's down. I think they deserve to be here with the late season rally that they've had. Um,
Sure.
I could definitely see
Yeah.
Boise State winning this one. I just want to pick UNLV for the chaos because I've loved watching this team. I don't want to see them lose on this stage. They deserve it. Give me UNLV.
And can we talk about, oh my God, Air Force, what happened?
Dude,
Like
monumental collapse.
they were 8-0. They had good wins. They had great wins even. If they went out, they're the favorite for the New Year's Six slot that we talked about
Easily.
earlier. Like, because they were 8-0, and I'm pretty sure they were ranked 21st before they lost to Army. And Army, which I'm pretty sure it's like if they someone has to explain this to me because I don't understand it and I couldn't find anyone out. But so Hawaii, they're going or wait, they could have gone bowling. They're not going bowling, even though they had 13 games, right? But in the other aspect of that, Army's not going bowling, even though they haven't played their 12th game. And it's just it's a weird thing that because I'm pretty sure, yeah, Navy also, both of these teams are 5 and 6, but neither of them are bowl eligible even if they win. And I think it's just so crazy to me that they basically gave up the chance to go bowling because they want to play each other on December 9th. But
So
um
the
but yeah.
reason for I can clarify that. The reason for Army, at least, I'll have to double check Navy, but the reason for Army is because they have two FCS wins. You
Mm,
have to if you have two FCS wins, you have to win 7 games in order to be bowl eligible. I'm not sure if that's the same case with Navy. I don't remember their schedule.
uh
Let me
I
check.
see Wagner. Um
Yeah, that's so they
I
only
think
have one. So for Navy, I'm not really sure why that is. Um,
hold on. Maybe
but
I'm
for
being
Army, that's
dumb.
why.
Hold on. Navy football bowl game.
Yeah, put them
Okay,
in,
but yeah, but hey, put them in. Be cool. Don't let Minnesota play. Um,
please. Um, SEC championship, huge one here. Obviously, we all kind of knew this matchup was going to happen. Georgia, Alabama.
dogs by 90. Anyways,
Oh.
as a I grew up a Georgia fan. I live in Alabama now. I've had plenty of experience with Alabama football teams, and I think this one's going to come out of nowhere, and it's going to be like a 2020 game at half, and I mean like 20 points is 20 points. But something about this Georgia team and the Georgia team in the second half. I thought we were gonna be closer with Ole Miss. And then that game, geez, oh my Lord. But oh, I think Georgia can win big here. And I think this is but I think both you'll never hear it from Kirby or Nick, but they both understand what this game means for both programs. Because like if Alabama loses, this will be the last Alabama or the easiest path for an Alabama playoff appearance that they have ever, like in the next few years, that being said. And all it comes down to is one game. Because if Georgia wins, and then if Georgia goes to the playoff, and then if Georgia wins three in a row, then you're like we go from, oh, Georgia's one of the best teams to Georgia is significantly better than everyone else, just like Alabama was in 2011, 2012, 2013. Um, but it's insane, man. So
Yeah, I agree with everything you just said. It's kind of like the people are saying that the Michigan Ohio State game is the game of all time because after everything changes, right? It just the meaning of it changes. Kind of the same with Georgia Alabama. It's gonna, who knows what it'll look like next year. Um, I don't. People are saying Alabama is like this such a different team. They're playing better. I still don't believe in Jalen Merrill passing the ball. He's gotten better, but I don't think you can rely on that. Georgia's defense isn't as great as they were last 2-3 years, but I trust Carson back in that Georgia offense a little bit. I think they're a little bit more balanced. I've been going back and forth on this one. I think I'm gonna go with Georgia.
Hmm.
For sure.
I think it's close. I'm gonna go
Yeah.
with Georgia.
It's been a safe bet to pick Georgia for, 2+ years. So I'm
Yeah,
going
if
to
you're
roll
on the
with Georgia
fence,
on this one.
if you're on the fence, you gotta go
Uh,
with Georgia.
and
Yeah.
I
I
will
think it's
say, um, total like random thought here, but we're gonna go back 5 years from now, and that stupid fourth and 31 play. Okay, random thing, random sidebar. Um, in Alabama, there are like mixed Iron Bowl parties, and like it's normal. And this is I'm originally from Florida, and I grew up Georgia fan, so it's like all those times it's always a Florida party, a Florida State party, a Georgia party. You know what I mean? But it's like I watched it with Alabama and Auburn fans, and I was like, as a partial Georgia fan, or like a fan partial to Georgia, I guess. Um, I was rooting for Auburn the whole time just because it was pissing off like three Alabama fans. I had to go to the back porch. Anyways, but that fourth and 31 play is going to be like, it's what's going to lead to a few different things. I think it's going to lead to, there's going to be less fire under the Alabama players. I would be way more scared of a Iron Bowl loss Alabama than a Iron Bowl win Alabama. I think Auburn themselves is going to come up with something a lot better now that they've had to eat that crow. And then I think with Georgia having a less SEC voodoo game in the championship game, I think it's just like it makes that train roll even harder. So, but yeah.
fascinating. I I mean, you talked about Georgia, like this game could decide if they're like that much better than everybody else. I'd honestly argue that they already are.
Mhm.
Um, but this will definitely make it certain if they win this one, and if they win it handedly, that they are the team and nobody comes close. Um, Not even Alabama. And I think the torch has already been passed from Saban to Kirby. Not that Saban's like fallen off or anything, but I think that torch has definitely been passed. I want to see if what kind of fire is under that Alabama team. I will tell you this though: that fourth and 31 play will not guarantee Jalen Miro a Heisman. No matter how
Oh
much
my
he thinks
gosh.
that he's going
Oh
to get a
my
Heisman
God.
How
because of
dare
that,
he?
stop.
How dare
Stop. He needs
you?
to stop that. Alabama fans need to stop it. He got benched. No Heisman's ever been benched. Are you joking? Stop.
I will say I think Georgia's beatable. I think it takes the right team, right style to beat them. I don't think Alabama has that style. I think you have to be able to pass really well,
Yeah.
and I don't think they can
It
do that.
and it takes a team that Kirby Smart doesn't want to beat the crap out of.
Yeah.
That's true too.
like I think Kirby so back to the Oregon Georgia game way back when. I think there was a
Dude.
lot of talk about Kirby wanting to or Kirby having to like prove his might over his assistants like Nick did. And he was like, okay, watch this and Bo Nix threw like two pick sixes. Um and I think there's flavor with that, but I don't think that flavor is there anymore. I don't think that flavor is there if he plays Washington. Now, for some reason, he pulls off his best games against Michigan, but Washington, Oregon, Texas, I don't think that he has that same. Obviously, he wants to win, but like there's like wanting to win and there's like desiring to beat the out of the guy on the other sideline. Um,
Yeah.
so it'll
Ironically,
be
I
fun.
think those are those three teams you mentioned. I think those are the only three teams that can beat Georgia because they have
Oh,
the
for sure.
potential of an elite passing attack. I don't think any of the other teams do. Can
Yeah.
they do it? Who knows? But
Yeah.
they have the
And I think
potential to.
a name to look out for draft and playoffs is Tyke Smith. He's been like he's been like in the shadow. He was an All-American at West Virginia and then like transferred to Georgia, had a knee injury or something. But this year he has been like that Richard LeCount the third, where it's like he just he just plays ball. Not a lot of people can get in his way, not a lot of people change, or not a lot of people get past him. So hey.
All right, gonna wrap up the last four here. American Athletic Conference, SMU versus Tulane. I don't know for sure if Preston Stone is officially out, but it kind of looked as if he
Did
would
he
be
break
after
his
that
leg?
injury. Yeah, it looked pretty bad, but I
Yeah.
haven't seen anything that said he's like officially out. So,
I
but
don't think
it looked pretty certain to me. Oh yeah, I think he had left fibula surgery on Tuesday, so that
yeah,
would
he's
yeah, he's out.
yeah, he's out, and I think that's SMU's chances of winning this game are also gone. So I'm gonna go
Wait,
with Tulane.
pardon me, pardon me. I'm gonna look at the depth chart. Who is there?
Have Alex
Do they?
Padilla, who is a Iowa transfer, and then they have two freshmen who also played last week.
Yeah. Hmm. The only reason that I'm pausing here is because of all teams to be okay with a backup, I think SMU could. And it'll be so funny because like I have a message request from a certain unnamed SMU alum that says like basically some words I can't say over the air, but
You
because
can.
I was like I had basically been crapping on SMU because Josh Pate kept putting them as like the number one group of five team, and I'm like, they're not the number one group of five team, even with a power ranking idea. Um, but it's so hard for me because like they do have a great offense, I will say. The defense is suspect, but um when you look at this matchup, I think it's so hard to count out SMU with everything they've done. And shout out Alabama legend. Who's their kicker? Why am I forgetting his name? He follows me on Twitter. Colin Rogers from Prattville, Alabama, Alabama legend. He is their sophomore kicker who's also like top five in the nation, has been past 2 years in points. Um, but yeah, I did see the Preston Stone injury, and I will pick Tulane, but I think that Tulane does not cover no matter what the spread is. So
Yeah,
Spread is
spread is
minus
actually
3.5.
it's only 3.5, which is kind of surprising.
yeah,
But yeah, I mean, both teams are undefeated in conference play. It's just to me, it's hard to pick against Tulane because they've run this conference for
yeah,
the last 2 years, year and a half, whatever you want to call it. I don't really like this Tulane team as much as I did last year. They
yeah,
haven't been winning pretty. I do think they're still playing really good football. They still have a team that's capable of being the New Year's Six team and probably will be. So I'm going to pick them. I don't like it though. I would have loved to have seen Preston Stone on this stage. I just think no matter who they start, if they fall behind, I don't think you can rely on any of those quarterbacks that they have. They have a really strong running game though. LJ Johnson Jr., Jalen Knighton, I really like those guys. You got some dogs on the defensive line. It's just I think Mekhi Hughes and Tulane is going to have a really big game against SMU. So give me Tulane. I think Tulane just barely covers, maybe like a 7 point game. I think it's going to be low scoring though.
yeah. And one thing I will say is that if I was UTSA, I'm going to those winter meetings and I'm being like, we are changing the scheduling. Because one thing I've always brought up about SMU is like 7 of the 8 teams they've played are the 7 worst teams in the conference. If you look at if you look at the way the schedule went out, because it's like UTSA, they had to play. I think it was like all those teams are right below them, like Navy, Rice, South Florida, like all those teams. I'm pretty sure the only one that SMU had to play was it South Florida, or no, it was Memphis. They had to play Memphis, and they
Yeah.
almost got knocked out. And I know like North Texas ran with them for 3 quarters, and they almost lost to Rice. And those were all with Preston Stone at quarterback. But I do think it'll be a fun game. I think Tulane will definitely win. Uh, but but the American has definitely been underwhelming this year. They've had like I'm even looking at Tulane. They almost lost to Tulsa. They almost lost to East Carolina. They had a 2 point win against Rice. Literally, Rice, East Carolina, Tulsa, 3 weeks in a row, and it's a combined win margin of 7. But
Yeah.
hey,
Shout out to
they
Alex Golish at South Florida though.
for
I
sure.
think I predicted in our preview magazine that they would make a bowl game in their first year. I can't remember exactly what I wrote, but shout out to them, man. That was a very quick turnaround. But want to get going on our last three picks here. Don't want to run too too over the time here, but let's go to the Sun Belt Championship game, App State and Troy.
Yeah, I'll actually be at this game. Troy wants revenge. I know like all the writers and all the sportscasters and stuff, they're like, Troy's not about revenge over App State. Yes, it's about revenge over App State. They're the one loss last year that kept them out of the New Year Six. Um, but but Troy wants revenge, and Troy will have revenge at home. The Sun Belt does the weird thing where like I think they're the only FBS conference where even though it's at your home site, it's an away game or like it's a neutral site game, but no one else treats it that way. The band doesn't treat it that way. The student section doesn't treat it that way. So it'll be fun. It'll be live. I'll be there. I'll be posting stuff there. But yeah, go Trojans.
I don't. There's no such thing as a neutral game when you're playing at your home state. I mean,
Yeah.
that just doesn't make any sense. I've never understood that. I don't know why basketball or football does that. But, yeah, I'm going with Troy as well. They're at home. Stadium's gonna be rocking. Gonna be electric. They're the favorite for a reason. Troy.
The Troy team has really turned it around. 9 wins in a row. I think the biggest key has been the play of Gunnar Watson. I think he was a little bit turnover prone last year. It didn't really matter because they had an amazing defense and a really stout run game. But this year, I think he's helped me be more convinced of their offense, being able to go toe to toe with App State, who has a really good offense as well. Give me Troy. I think they cover as well. Talking about covering, Michigan is a, what is it, 21 and a half point favorite against Iowa. I think the bigger question, rather than who wins, is like, is there any chance that they don't cover? But let's stick with winners, Michigan, Iowa.
I mean, do we really need to talk about it?
Yeah, I'm gonna
I
pick
mean,
Michigan here, but I
yeah,
think 21 points is nuts for a team that I don't think they don't need to run up the score, and I think it would be dumb if they did, because Iowa, they're the corn-fed Big Ten West team. Like if you
Indeed.
find the wrong player out in the flat, you're gonna get rocked. So
yeah. I think it's one of those things with Michigan. Let's just get in there, get out healthy, run the clock, quick
yeah,
game.
and
You do over and on the time. Forget the score. How
the
quick the
uh
game's gonna be.
the gritty, sneaky, athletic, ball knowledge, Cooper DeHaan Jr. He will probably have a impact on special teams. Like I wouldn't be surprised if he gets a touchdown. He should
He's
have
out for
got
the
one.
year.
Oh wait, he's out now? Oh, I didn't know he
Yeah, he's
was
out for the
fully
year.
out. Well, well, sorry, Iowa.
Yeah, they're what is there, 6'6", 260-pound quarterback. I don't know if he's going to be able to survive that Michigan defense, especially in the first half when the game's probably only going to matter. So I think Michigan will handle this one by 30 plus. They'll be setting their starters in the third, fourth quarter. So give me Michigan big, and then I think this is one of the biggest on the fence ones that we have in the Power Five, especially is Louisville versus Florida State. Louisville coming off a loss to Kentucky. Florida State still without Jordan Travis, obviously coming off a 9-point win over Florida, who takes the ACC.
You want to go first, Adam?
Sure. So watched the whole game last week, Florida State. I thought Tate Rodemaker, he looked a little. It looked like the game was moving too fast in the first half for him. He was holding on to the ball a lot. Florida loves to blitz. They don't really get that much pressure if they don't, so it's understandable. Louisville, if I'm not mistaken, they have one of the best pass rush percentages in college football. So can Tate slow that game down, or if I think if Louisville was able to get home with just a pass rush and drop everybody else back, I think Florida State might struggle. I wasn't really impressed from that Florida game. Trey Benson, I thought he looked good. He didn't look great. Maybe they try and lean on him a little bit more, but I think Florida State wins still. I don't. I think the game's going to be ugly, and I also think they need style points. as unfair as it is. Yeah, I think Florida State, like 17-13, something like that. Be a defensive touchdown changes the game. Jared Verse, strip sack, fumble, something like that.
Yeah. I'm taking Louisville. Give me the points. Give me whatever. It's a different team. I think with Jordan Travis, like, and I don't want to sound like the guy from the playoff committee. It's a different team. But uh Rodemaker is and he has plenty of experience. Uh he was like oh like because he played at Valdosta, which for those that aren't in that area, it's a huge state championship winning school in Southwest Georgia. Um and he's played FSU ball obviously now. And I think that the experience level, the talent level isn't the issue. It's that confidence and that
Mhm.
um being able to like know when your receiver's going to come open. Like the one thing I've been making Oregon references the whole night, but like that Tej Johnson, Bo Nix connection, they played at Pinson Valley. They played for half a decade with each other because I'm pretty sure Bo moved there when he was like in seventh, or he moved there when he was in seventh, whatever. But and then now, even though they're a couple years removed, they still know like the general tendencies of each other. And it's why, like, I know there's been several people been like, "Oh, we have better receivers on the roster," but it's like, okay, well, they have a connection. Um, and I'm sure, like, practice squad, second team, he has plenty of connections there. But it's like the Keon Coleman's and everything. Like, does he have that same connection with them? And I know their running game's great. Their running game's what they relied on to beat Florida, but it's gonna be real tough. Like pack your lunchbox, Florida State, but um, I think Louisville comes out with the victory there.
I I've been writing Florida State all season long. I think they are the better team. I just think this Louisville team is uh, hungry, and I think a very um, they're a very balanced offensive attack because I think Jack Plummer's been a really good spark plug for them at quarterback. They have one of the best running offenses in the country. Defense, they had one of the best defenses in the country last year. I think they had the most sacks in the FBS, or one of top two teams I think last year. Not as good this year, but they still have a really stout defense up front. Struggled a lot last week against Kentucky, a Kentucky offense that hadn't really been doing a whole lot throughout the season. But I think Louisville is going to pull off a stunner in this one. I like Louisville to win this one by let's say a game-winning field goal at the end of the game. I think Tate Rodemaker might be impressive. I think he's going to put up some numbers, but I think Louisville's going to win in a shootout. I don't think it's going to be as ugly as Adam thinks. I think it might be a shootout. So give me Louisville in this one.
For the brand, I hope
Sh-
y'all are right. That's good for my brand.
Shake things up.
Louisville wins.
I've rooted for Florida State all year long, but to me, this is just a weird vibe thing. I feel like Louisville is going to
Yeah,
pull it off,
I, I
finally
I
be the
think
team that does it.
I think Louisville losing to Kentucky that's bad for Florida State because that's kind of like a wake up call, kind of
Yeah.
like what Auburn losing to Mexico,
Mexico State.
Mexico State, and now then they showed up. They probably show up against Alabama anyways, but it was kind of like okay, we can get slapped if we don't show up. So,
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, here's the stakes here. This is our last week for our technically regular season pick'em. So Mitch of the Three Tech Pod, he has won 28 of the last 30 games in our pick'em. He has jumped ahead in our first
I
place
need to get
spot,
his picks
99
for
and
my
41.
parlay. Let me hit him up.
Jake and I are tied at 94 and 46. Andrew's 93 and 47. There's still a couple other people in the running, but I believe that those four are going to be in the race for the regular season title. Now, for our guest standings, Scout, as you would like to know, our number to beat is 8 and 2. There's a three-way tie for 8 and 2 between Cole Adams, Eric Edholm, and our friend Shahan Jiraja, who's been on every season. Um, and he always does very well in our pick 'em. But if you can get 9 wins, you are our guest picker champion. So hopefully that doesn't make you rethink some of your picks. But if you can get 9 wins, you're the outright champ.
He's
So
muted again.
shall we wrap up then? I guess I can wrap it up if he's muted. But thank you everybody for tuning in, especially
Oh
all
wait, wait, wait.
season long. Oh,
Oh, okay. My fault. My
go
fault.
ahead.
I said I'm gonna miss the MAC championship. That's gonna be it. I have no clue about the MAC or like compared to every other conference. Like I can tell you, like I think Liberty's gonna win like 35-20. And I can tell you that like Louisville's gonna win like 28-14, right? But it's like then the MAC, I'm just like, okay, we're gonna flip a coin, and I like Blaine Gabbert, so
Well, his son's out, but or his brother is out, but still a fun team to root for, the Redhawks this year. So shout out to Maction. But Scout, where can people find you and your social media?
yeah. So we currently have a Twitter as our main source, at Southern Charm SP, or you can just look up Southern Charm Sports. And then on Instagram is not necessarily our main, but we're trying to get better at it because we have some like we do a lot of high school football content. So there's a lot of like parents that are on Instagram or they're on Facebook and they're not on Twitter. So on there we're just straight up Southern Charm Sports, all one word. But yeah, but we post basically sports content. And yeah, so.
Well, thank you so much for joining us and being our final guest picker of the season. And thank you, Adam, as always, for hopping on as well. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We will see you in our next podcast where we will be previewing the college football playoff and bowl games. Cannot wait for it. So
Texas
thank you so much, everybody.
is